The single most important thing I think that any business owner can do is a business plan. Because fundamentally, if you can't take the time, can't be bothered, don't have the experience, the expertise to sit down and to write what you're going to do, chances are you no chance to do it. So
like I always say to a small business owner, do you have a good accountant and do you trust them?
yep.
You know what I mean? Because someone has to manage the money, right? Because most these guys just sort of spend their money on stupid stuff, like, you know, $500 sneakers is a really stupid idea when you're not making enough money. So can you provide us with a little bit of advice for a small business owner who's, you know, doing $150,000 a year? Like, what could you say to help him manage his money better?
Look, what I would say for anyone, whether you're, if you're looking at getting into running your own business or you currently do run your own business and you want to grow it, the single most important thing I think that any business owner can do is a business plan. Because fundamentally, if you can't take the time, can't be bothered, don't have the experience, the expertise to sit down and to write what you're going to do, chances are you no chance to do it. So it's very easy to just get an initial idea in your mind and just charge off and say, okay, this is the direction we're going. But writing a business plan, I think, is the most fundamental thing to a business's success. Now, it's not just when you start your business, but if you're going to shift from one, take your business from one place to another, to start offering new services, change direction, whatever it is that you want to do, anytime there's growth or change, I think it's really important to write down what you're going to do before you do it.
Hey, can I interrupt you there? Because this is really super important, right? Like, so I want to just get a little bit micro on that. So when you say write a business plan, I just want to break that down a little. So how long should the business plan be for what sort of term, and what's actually in it?
Yep. So the government actually has a standard template that you can use. That was the first one that I downloaded and used. And it's set up for people that are in supply and service industries and that sort of stuff. So it's very generic, very broad. To go through that and to actually pick out the relevant parts and say, okay, I'm a builder, I don't need to worry about the same considerations as someone who's manufacturing or things like that. But there's a lot of stuff in that basic template, and that's where I started. Basically, in terms of things that you would want to cover, first and foremost is the structure of your business. And by that, I mean, are you a sole trader, proprietary limited, is it a partnership? To actually make that decision. Now, to do that, most people would have to say, okay, well, I don't know the difference between them. So getting back to my original principle of ask a heap of questions, I don't know about business structures, and I didn't when I started. So who's the person that you're going to ask? Well, obviously an accountant. Okay, I need to then go and speak to an accountant, but I'm not going to speak to one. I'm going to speak to 3 or 4 or 5, however many I need to basically interview people to say, this is the business that I'm trying to set up. I want to become a builder, a carpenter, whatever it is. What do I need to think about? What do I need to consider? What do I need to plan for? What are your fees? What services do you provide? What are the timings? When are these payments due? Ask a million silly questions, as many as you can think of those accountants. You're going to get a lot of information back. Going through that process, you will ultimately be able to pick an accountant, and you will get a lot of information, a lot of feedback, a lot of advice. And that's the first place that I would start, looking at your business structure, because that's something that may change over time. You might stay as a sole trader. You might move to a proprietary limited, whether you start as a proprietary limited and the shares of your company are owned by a trust, or you operate as a trustee of a trust. There's a whole heap of different structures that, a lot of different people in the industry work within. Changing from one to another is possible, but depending on when you do that, that could quite seriously cost you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital gains tax and other taxes and fees to go and pull this all apart and to change it. Now, I've gone through that process 3 times and knew when that change was being made from a sole trader to a proprietary limited, to then reconfiguring the company, I suppose, and introducing trust and that sort of stuff. So there are different stages when all that happens. And in terms of the business plan, using this as an example of like the period of time that your business plan should cover, ultimately I look at it as, okay, what am I trying to achieve? So I'm trying to set up a business. Well, essentially the business plan needs to cover the establishment of the business. And for something like the corporate entity structure, there will come a time where that structure expires. So that business plan would basically end when that structure expires. So whatever that next milestone that I need to hit. Now, there might be another consideration that actually that you reach beforehand, which means your business plan is no good, and you need to reinvest time and effort into preparing a new one. So it may not be company structure, but as an example, that's basically how I go through it, and I figure out what is that first milestone that basically makes this business plan obsolete. There may be a period which basically I've experienced where I've written a business plan that then has taken me potentially 12 to 18 months to go through and to put all those things in place. And then I've worked for 2 or 3 years basically under that business plan and nothing's changed. And I think that's another really important point as well. When you go through a period of establishment or growth, to actually spend some time enjoying the benefits of all that work that you've put in and actually making money from it, because it's extremely expensive to establish, to grow, to develop. So once you've actually gotten to the point where you've finished that business plan and you've implemented everything, to spend 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, understanding what you've done, implementing it, make really small changes and stay focused on what you've done so that you can actually make money from all of that effort, as opposed to, we're going to go from establishment to our next plan, to our next plan, to our next plan. And all you're doing is putting in effort and money, and you never actually get to experience the benefit of what you've done. Like, you will make money along the way, but to actually say, you know what, we're not planning for future growth, we're not planning for anything. We're going to sit here for 12 months and I'm just going to enjoy implementing what I've done and make money from it. And I don't have to spend anymore. I've put everything in place. I can take those profits and I can go and buy the $500 runners or the $100,000 ute or the speedboat or whatever, because I'm confident knowing the minimal outgoings, the business is set. I've just got to get out of bed and go to work and enjoy doing what I've set up. So that's my approach.
Yeah. Look, and look, that's all valid, right? And I think, just to add to that, I think, the business plan doesn't have to be complicated, right? Keep it simple, because I think the decisions you make today will influence the decisions you make tomorrow, right? So, I normally advise guys to keep it short, keep it to 12 months, and just think about the next 12 months and get laser focused on that. I think you've got to put the numbers in there. I don't think many business owners think about the numbers. Like, what does it cost to run my business? What's my gross margin? What's my net margin? And what money can I put aside for a rainy day in case the business needs it? What money do I put aside for growth? Because people start businesses not to stay in the same place. They obviously want to grow those businesses, but sometimes they don't realize that. If you started a business, 10 years ago and you were earning the exact same amount of money, and doing the exact same thing, you're not going to feel good about that. You're going to want to jump off a bridge, right? Because come on, let's face it. Building a business about prosperity, you want to create prosperity for yourself and your family. So, people need to realize, get focused on, where's my growth? How do I do that? Am I laser focused on it? Who do I need to reach out to? What questions do I need to ask? And essentially, how do I turn those wheels, right? And I think in that construction space, they run forward and they don't pause and stop and breathe and think, God damn, where am I now? What do I need to do, right? Because it's all, look, I'm too busy to do that. Well, and in fact, learning, creating a business plan should be part of your strategy every day, right? It can't just about being on the tools is great. That's what physically generates cash and makes money. But if you don't do the work behind the scenes, that effort becomes, it's challenging, right? The success that you could get from it tends to wane a little bit,
Yeah, look, I agree. I think the other thing is too, to say, okay, this is the objective. I want to get to a point where I'm earning 150,000 or 250,000 or $500,000, whatever your objective is. To actually get there and to say, okay, I'm going to implement this now. I've done all the work, done all the planning, I've bought the tools, I've done, reinvested money in marketing, branding, whatever you've done. Have I actually gotten myself to a point where I am now earning 150 or 200,000, whatever your objective was? Because there's no point saying, okay, I've done all this stuff. I think I'm now earning 150 grand. Let's go and make a heap more decisions. But in essence, you haven't moved yourself any further along, and all you're doing now is spending money and accruing debt. So it really is important to pause and to actually say, okay, I'm going to use this time to plan for the next stage while I'm understanding and making sure that, yeah, I did actually do what I set out to do, and this is real, this is tangible. I'm actually making that money.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like we said in a morning meeting this morning, I said to them, most people don't know actually what their income is.
Yeah.
Especially a small business owner, right? This is why you got to have a good accountant, people. Is like, they look at the gross number. They say, hey, I invoiced $10,000 this week. They actually think they made $10,000. That is not the case. There's liability on that. There's taxes you have to pay on that. There's probably GST in that. You know what I mean? There's wages you need to pay, operational OPEX that you need to pay as well, right? So, it's finding how to get your money for that week or for that 30 days and how to budget your money out so you can be sustainable, that you can enjoy the hard work you've done and still grow your business all at the same time. And it's 100% achievable. Maybe, I think that's what sort of people need in the market these days. It's very challenging for them that, there's no courses or there's really no information out there that's easy to access that can directly, specifically tell them you should do X, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit challenging. But you're right. Look, have a good accountant, trust that accountant, and also probably have a good lawyer, right? And trust that lawyer.
Absolutely. And an insurance broker.
And an insurance broker. Absolutely.
I would say, look, they're the three. My accountants and lawyers, they absolutely send me some bills and they get paid. But look, you need to pay, you need to expect to pay for good advice. And if people aren't giving you good advice or responding, go and interview other people, because that sort of advice, really good accounting advice, really good legal advice, they're the sorts of things that, like I was saying before, when something either goes very right or very wrong, it's generally going to be, the outcome's generally going to be as a result of the advice that you've been given by your accountants, your lawyers, your insurance brokers. And like I said, I know for myself, because I've been through this, changing business structures the time that I did it, saved me nearly 6 figures in tax that I would have had to pay. So that's, we're talking serious amounts of money. And even, in terms of legal advice, contracts and agreements that I've had in place on projects have been the difference between me still operating comfortably and me having a real time of it, trying to go to court to sort something out. So, look, they're absolutely the three, but I suppose there's all sorts of other things too. So I know the biggest thing, like you were saying before, there's so much to learn and it's hard. There's no manual on any of this. The secret really is to absolutely fall in love with what you're doing, but fall in love with all aspects of it.
Hey, if you like this video and this content and you thought that it helped you, please click subscribe. We'd love for you to join our community. Thank you for joining.